Morning now, morning Razor.
Scott, that first 45 minutes I thought was dire from Chelsea. I'm not taking anything away from Fulham. Fulham went into full of it, and for me, with a better side by a mile. What has gone wrong for Chelsea?
Well, look, I mean, I'd actually disagree. Who am I to disagree with you, Al? But I actually watched it last night. I was at a charity event, and then I came home and watched it because I wanted to be able to talk properly about it.
Yeah.
And I actually felt go up to 1-0. I thought Chelsea were marginally the better side, although they weren't creating too many chances. And we said that a few times in terms of the middle third, they're decent. Poor defending on the goal. Now, Lewis Saul, I have to say, is one of the few positives. I think he's been absolutely fantastic. But mistake on the goal, not a great header from Chalobah. Azpilicueta's got to show him outside. There's a deflection. Again, you don't want to talk about luck all the time, but that's, from Graham Potter's point of view, bad luck. They get themselves into the game. I thought Joao Felix was excellent, one of the best debuts I've seen for a very long time. And what happens? He goes and puts in a challenge like that. How can Graham Potter do anything about that? Your best player puts in that type of tackle. So at 1-1, I'm thinking Chelsea are kind of in control of this game. And I think are going to win it, definitely not lose it. And then suddenly you're on the back foot. But even the winning goal, I mean, I paused it and I looked at it, and there were 5 Chelsea defenders in the box.
Chalobah, he tries to step up. The goalkeeper goes for a coffee. It's just unbelievable. There's plenty back there.
There's so many bad individual mistakes that Graham Potter can't do anything about. That, look, it's not good. And I understand where the Chelsea fans are coming from. Looking at the table, I mean, Chelsea haven't been in that position for a very long time. And I've said this before. It's almost like Chelsea fans have been almost programmed that over the last 2 decades, if Chelsea are anywhere near this position, then the manager's going to get sacked. And I understand where they're coming from. But Graham Potter will talk about the injuries. I mean, look, you're talking double figures in terms of injuries. The 2 wing backs or full backs, or whatever you want to call them, are key players in this position. I think Reece James is the best player at Chelsea right now. So you've got the injuries. You've got poor defensive mistakes. You've got your almost star player, certainly last night anyway, putting in a horrendous tackle that you're thinking, where the heck did that come from? Just stay on your feet. And I think it's just a symptom of what's happened. Look, I go back to the Salzburg game where he was lauded for brilliant tactician. He's put Sterling on one side. He's put Pulisic on the other. He's gone there. He's tweaked it. He's moved the system around in the second half. And then suddenly you've played Brighton away, which is always going to be difficult. You've played Manchester City 3 times. You've played Arsenal, who are the best team in the country right now. But you put Newcastle, who are probably the second best team in the country, certainly before the World Cup. So, look, I'm not making excuses for him. This can't go on, clearly. But I genuinely believe that managers are more important than ever now, and Razor, more even than in our day. But it's still ultimately down to the players. And when you've got one, double figures in terms of players being injured, and 2, the players who are out there on the pitch making silly mistakes, then you're going to get this sort of almost perfect storm. It has to change. And what I would urge the Chelsea fans to do is just be patient with Graham Potter. I think we all know he can do better than this. All this stuff about, he's gone to a big club. I think he can deal with the egos. He genuinely can. He just needs a bit of time. He needs his best players back. And then we can judge him at the end of the season. But
will he get to the end of the season, Scott?
Well, I hope so. And in recent times, you would say no. But I genuinely believe that these owners are different. They got rid of Thomas Tuchel, not because of what happened on the pitch. But let's not forget, Chelsea weren't in a great place on the pitch. I think they'd lost to Dinamo Zagreb away from home. They'd lost 3-0 to Leeds. They'd lost to Southampton, a game that I covered, and they were really poor. But it was almost the fact that he wouldn't be willing to manage up. Players have come in, they've overspent, yes. But I don't have a problem with the overspending. The question is, are they the right type of players? And the jury's still out on that. And he's also got a manager that he's put on a long-term contract. So I genuinely think that the owners want to go a completely different way to what the fans have been used to, but they will look at the results. That performance yesterday wasn't that bad. I don't believe it was, but they'll look at the results and they certainly need to win a game. And you talk about Man U, Man City. You talk about Arsenal, Spurs. Well, Chelsea, Palace. I'll tell you, that's a massive game for Chelsea.
I just better mention that, Scott. The weekend, Sunday, obviously, Palace goes to Chelsea, maybe thinking, well, this is a good time to play Chelsea. But the crowd is going to be interesting because they equalised last night, and then Chelsea fans were taking the mick out of themselves, really, saying we are staying up, and that probably isn't helping the players. And certainly, if Palace can start on the front foot and get that first goal, then the reaction of the crowd is going to be interesting on Sunday at Stamford Bridge.
You're right, mate, and I heard you sort of talk about that earlier as well. And look, there's a tribute to Luca before the game, and unfortunately, I can't go. I'm working elsewhere on the Lisbon derby, but I hope that kind of love will go through to the game, and the fans will be behind Chelsea, because this is the time, and Chelsea fans are entitled, and any fan are entitled to say, within reason, obviously, what they want. They pay their hard-earned money, but this is the time where now, as a player, you want your supporters to support you because they need you. And if for a bad reason, Palace go 1-0 up, wouldn't it be great if the Chelsea fans were 100% behind the team? They get back into it, they win the game, and the fans can go home and say, do you know what? We played a part in that. We could have made things really difficult for the fans. So yes, absolutely. But the fans are entitled to do what they want to do. Yeah. I just think the owner, he needs to be careful. It's less than 20 games in charge, Graham Potter. And they were unbeaten in the first 9. So it's basically been the last 10 games where they played some very difficult teams and had a lot of injuries as well.
Okay.
Well, they need to be very careful.
Scott. No, I understand what you're saying, Scott. My only thing is just a little thought is the youngster Hall, what is he, 18 or 19? And João Felix, they were probably Chelsea's best players. You got a kid and you got a debutant. I think some of the other players have got to look themselves in the mirror and say, I've got to do better. I've got to give them more.
Couldn't agree more. They were the best 2 players for Chelsea. And João Felix, don't forget, is not going to be around for the next 3 matches. So that's a big problem. When you got a kid coming in and he's your second best player, then there is a problem, clearly. Everyone needs to step up. And this is what it's like, where everyone puts the blame on the manager all the time. And ultimately, the buck stops with the manager. But I also think there's a player responsibility to do whatever you need to do, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, to get yourself up for the game, to be mentally strong and to be 100% behind it. Again, I go back to it. If Todd Bowley sacks Graham Potter after 20 matches, he sets a tone where you're looking at 2 to 3 managers every season if things don't go well.
And that's not good. You're right.
That's not good.
Scott, listen, enjoy the Lisbon derby. Thank you very much.
Cheers,
Speak
Scott.
later.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Alan Brazil. Thursday and Friday morning, 6 till 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.